Hello, I'm Mark Firstenaw, Training and Investigation Supervisor for the Auglaize County Correctional Center. We took a look at what was working and what wasn't working in the facility, and we decided that the old traditional methods of incarceration just weren't working. Basically, the old system was you take a dysfunctional person, you put them in a dysfunctional environment with other dysfunctional individuals, you set the timer, you let them sit, watch TV, they watch Jerry Springer 3 times a day, they are recreating their crimes with other inmates, they eat their 3 hots and sleep, and when the timer's up, you let them out, and somehow between the time they went in and when they were released, they were supposed to become a better person. The bottom line is this system just does not work. So we were forced into a situation where we needed to take a look at what does work. First of all, incarceration in and of itself is not a deterrent to crime. That system is based on the theory that an offender sees incarceration the same way a normal, ordinary, responsible person would see it. Unfortunately, most of the people that clog our correctional system today are people who came from situations where they had dysfunctional families, basically parents who didn't necessarily put a high priority on education, on getting a good night's sleep, on good nutrition, on good moral and ethical behavior. And those are the people that we are looking at incarcerating in our system today. Also, inmates see themselves as victims of the system. Incarceration for these people actually provides security. They're in a situation where they are more secure and they have 3 meals a day. They don't have to worry about who's taking care of the kids, who's getting the kids to the doctor if they're sick, who's paying the heating bill, who's paying the rent. That's all taken care of for them. And in a lot of cases, jail is actually a much nicer living environment than many of them had at home. Also, inmates suffer from drug and other alcohol and related problems. They have a criminogenic patterns of thinking. Under this system, the county, the state, the federal government all had to pay. We pay to arrest them, we pay to prosecute them. Most of the time we provide a public defender for them, so we're paying to defend them. We pay the judges to adjudicate them. We seat a jury to sit in on the trial. And at no point in this process does the offender contribute anything. The cycle just repeats itself over and over and over again because the system never addressed the real reason that they were coming to jail. The other thing that this caused us at the jail level is a security problem. You know, just sitting around all day watching TV, playing cards, getting into arguments over card games, into arguments over who's seeing whose girlfriend, those type of things, created a tremendous security problem for us. Our officers were continually responding to fights, arguments, disagreements, suicide attempts in the cell blocks, and this caused us problems as well with security. Okay, we've been at this long enough. Let's take a pop quiz. How do you punish an offender? Well, the best way we've found is to make them a taxpayer. Corrections these days, modern corrections, is not just a cuff them and stuff them environment anymore. Under the new system, our system, we hold offenders accountable for their actions. We require participation in treatment programs. We help them obtain tools that they'll need to be successful when they get out of jail. We actually make them become part of the solution. This may sound like traditional reentry programs, and in some respects it is, but we carry it a step further. So if you'll bear with me just for a few minutes, I think you'll see the distinction. Patricia Caruso, who's the director of the Michigan Department of Corrections, says that Reentry is also about good economic policy. When someone returns to prison, it costs an average of $30,000 a year. At the jail level, that translates into about $26,000 a year. Every dollar we spend on incarcerating people is a dollar we're not spending on public education, early childhood programs, health care, transportation, and all the things that people in the state need. The numbers under the old system just did not get any better. Recidivism rates run anywhere from 45 to 60% for offenders who are released. Many of them will return to incarceration within 90 days for probation or parole violations or due to reoffending. The thing that that the general public seems to feel about incarceration is that all we have to do is put them away and then we don't have to worry about them anymore. The problem is that at least 95% of all state prisoners will be released at some point. Nearly 80% will be released to some sort of supervision. For jails, that's nearly 100%. By year end of 2002, 1,440,655 prisoners were under the jurisdiction of state or federal correctional authorities. In 2001, about 592,000 state prison inmates were released to the community after serving time in prison. Nearly 700,000 adults were under state parole supervision by the year end 2002. By the end of 2000, 16 states had abolished discretionary release from prison by a parole board for all offenders. Among state parole discharges, 41% completed their term of supervision successfully. That's relatively unchanged since 1990. We knew that something had to be done. We looked at who our offenders are. Nearly 33% of our state prison releases in 1999 were drug offenders. 25% were violent offenders and 31% were property offenders. This is according to the Bureau of Justice Statistics. Basically, among state parole discharges in the year 2000, 41% successfully completed their term of supervision, 42% returned to prison or jail, and 9% absconded. Some groups actually did perform better over the 10-year period of the 1990s. The success rate for African American offenders increased from 33 to 39% during that period, and for Hispanics that figure increased from 31 to 51% during that period. Unfortunately, among whites, the success rate dropped from 44 to 41% during that same period. Females definitely had a better success rate during this period, of 48% success rate for the females compared to 39% for the males during that same period. Success rate for older inmates was definitely higher. Their success rate was 54% for age 55 or older as compared to 36% for those under the age of 25. Early intervention is one of the things that we found is important. The sooner that we can get people after their incarceration, the better. In every year during the 1990s, first releases were more likely to be successful on parole than re-releases. Basically, the statistics show that the more often a person is incarcerated, the lower their chances of success. So the moral of the story is start early. Does reentry work? Yes, it does. The longer a person stays in treatment, the higher their rate of success. There's several things that are essential for an effective reentry program. Coordination among agencies is essential. We don't have to reinvent the wheel with reentry programs. Basically, we can use services that are already available to us through mental health funds, through grants, through local school districts that provide GED programming and services like that. These aren't things that we've had to add or spend more money on. They were already available to us. Basically, we've identified 3 phases of reentry. The first phase is to protect and prepare. We're going to institute institutional-based programs at this point. These programs are designed to prepare offenders to re-enter society. Services provided in this phase include education, mental health programming, chemical dependency programming, anger management class. We're going to do a full range of diagnostic and risk assessments on the offenders at this point in their incarceration. The second phase of reentry is control and restore. Here we'll use community-based transition programs, halfway houses, treatment facilities, community-based correctional facilities. We have a number of things available to us in our arsenal at this point. When a person is moving from incarceration, stepping out, if you will, back into the community. Here we're going to talk about, we're going to continue job skills training. We're going to continue treatment programming, because it's a proven fact the longer a person stays in treatment, the better their chance of success. These things are going to become conditions of their release, conditions of their probation. The judges have been very cooperative with us in terms of getting these things added to the conditions of probation or parole. The third phase is that once we've managed to keep this continuum going, we've kept them in programming while they're in the facility, we've continued that programming once they're out, we've provided support services and continuing care for them. The next step is transition back into the community, where we're going to sustain that sobriety, where we're going to continue to offer them to a lesser degree, but still have the support system there. We're going to try and establish mentoring relationships for them with someone maybe at their workplace who can provide a good role model for them. It's all about changing this pattern of criminogenic thinking. As far as our transition program itself, that's that early intervention part of the program. We're going to assist them in getting a GED when they come into the facility, because you can't support yourself if you can't get a decent job, and most employment now involves having a high school diploma or a GED. Anger management can help them learn more appropriate ways of dealing with anger issues and conflict within their families, which is a cause for many of these people to come into the facility repeatedly. Religious services and Bible study and some of the faith-based programs provide a moral and ethical base throughout this process. Moral recognition therapy helps modify behavior. Employment readiness helps them support their families without having to commit crimes. Chemical dependency counseling helps them deal with their addiction issues. Mental health therapy can offer relief from mental and emotional problems. Now, the key to this whole process in what we call the Auglaize County Transition Program is the case manager. He isn't the whole program, but he is definitely the key player that holds everything together. Basically, a good transition program is going to have support. It's going to have support from the community. We have a broad base of support from our county commissioners to the voters of the county, to the sheriff, to many of the different agencies that we partner with to make this work. The person selected in this process is key. You need to have a person who is very aware of offenders and offender behavior. You have to have a person who is compassionate and understanding. Someone who is not going to put the offenders down or to blame them for things that they've done. It's more a case of having someone who can be firm, fair, and consistent in how they deal with them. Someone who can be a good role model for offenders. Someone who can be tough when they need to be, but can also be compassionate. The next thing is that person that's chosen for this has to be offered some latitude. We have to give them the power to do the things that they need to do, to have access to the offenders, to develop good working relationships with the courts, with probation and parole departments, with community agencies, because they're going to have to be able to work effectively with these agencies to come up with the programs that are going to be most effective for each individual offender. You're going to have a good internal program structure. And again, these aren't things that you have to go out and spend a lot of extra money on. These are things that are already available in many communities through the local mental health levies, through alcohol and drug programming that's provided by the county to its citizens, through the local school districts that provide GED programming, alternative school programs and things like that. These are not things that you have to necessarily spend money on. They're things that are already available to you. It's just a case of providing them with space and the opportunity to work with the offenders.
The Auglaize County Transition Program is made up of more than just one case manager. It is made possible by a group of people who are dedicated to reducing the recidivism rate in their area. What is the history behind ACT?
I think what's important to note is here it was started actually under Sheriff Longsworth, and he's seen the need for it at that time, and I believe with the work of our corrections staff, including yourself and our jail administrator and of course our commander, it was put into place. And what's important about that is I think it's been a proven factor. We had some inmate violence concerns. We looked at the issues at that time as far as the inmates being productive once they get back out into the community or re-enter into the community. And I think it's been a proven fact since we've had it in that our inmate violence has reduced at least 80% from the records that we're keeping. So I think it was a good program, and it was initially again started under Sheriff Longsworth.
Yeah, the Auglaize County Transition Program, or referred to as the ACT program, came into being about 2 to 3 years ago. It was a concept that we sat down and looked at a need for reentry, reintegration programming at the Auglaize County Correction Center. We were looking at a series of